Wednesday edition of On Cue. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. We are powered by our wonderful friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. 20% off BYP20. That's the promo code. Also, Three Brooks Bourbon. And of course, get ready with tea. And also a reminder from our good friends of the TBL, the Jersey Shore Breaks, with their opening tryout. They have another tryout this weekend at St. Rose, Saturday 9 to 1. Check them out online, jerseybreakstbl.com. For more information, follow them on IG. Rich Quinones here, an hour plus to play with on a Woosah Wednesday edition of On Cue on the 17th of September 2025. You can always get social with us. It's very easy to do on X, IG at Rich Q on Q, and of course, Rich Q on the mic on TikTok. Costco in a couple moments on college football. A lot of stuff going on in baseball. Pennant races heating up. Teams already locking down playoff berths, i.e. the Philadelphia Phillies clinching the NL East one more time. They did it very early, courtesy of the Mets' colossal collapse, if you will. And then a lot of injuries starting to pile up in the NFL. And you want to talk about just some of these makeshift starting rosters with some of these quarterbacks. Oh, my goodness. We're going to get into it as well. I've got a couple questions to throw out there on a Woosah Wednesday, especially when we're looking at the quarterbacking position in the NFL. We'll go through the power rankings, as I mentioned, college football with the 5 picks and a couple plays from Costco, which we'll do right after the break. So we're going to get to your comments. I got a lot of comments coming in the other day on the power rankings and if the Chiefs dynasty is done, who's going to be a threat to the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC. We will get into all that, as always, at Rich Q on Q. But as I mentioned, busy show. Quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. We'll pull our good friend up, Nick Costco. We'll talk a little college football with him. His 5 to 6 pack of Nick's picks plays on the weekend. Week 3 already in college football. We'll have the picks. We'll have the plays. We'll have the best bets coming up on the other side. So we're just cranking up on a Wednesday edition of On Cue. Keep it locked in right here. And again, we'll take you up to about 5 plus on this very dreary, nasty, rainy Wednesday in September. Quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. Welcome back. About 13 past 4 o'clock hour of a Wednesday, Woosah Wednesday. Don't try to get under my skin a couple minutes into the show. Woosah Wednesday edition of On Cue. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. By the way, a new episode of Back Your Play is dropping tomorrow. Just found out the good news from the good folks over at TV 48. We will be dropping that show every Saturday and Sunday, 11 to 12, to get you ready not only for college, but also for the NFL action. And speaking of college, we welcome in our good friend Nick Costco from On3 Sports. Does a wonderful job covering pretty much, I would say, every sport. But as we like to say, we get the discount, right? We get the discount, a little double check for Costco at Nick Costco. 59 college sports, On3 Sports, and of course, play-by-play RU Wrestling and Cal Live Sports as well down the Jersey Shore. What's going on, my friend?
Doing good, Rich. 3-2 last week, so we made money last week. We're on the comeback after that brutal week 1. So 3 weeks in, 6-9-1, still in the red right now. But things are turning around. Great weekend of college football in the past, and of course another great week of college football coming up this weekend. So eager to dive in as we do every week.
Yeah, I like the way you rebounded, right? I mean, that's what it's all about. You have a bad weekend, you turn around, you rebound, you help put a little coin, a little shekel in the pocket. Now, NFL, I did absolutely superb over the weekend. And by the way, that's courtesy of a couple cast-offs. Thank you very much, Daniel Jones. But alas, it is college. I have a feeling we're going to have a banner weekend with some of these picks. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Texas Tech at Utah, the Utes laying a soft 3. So you got 17th ranked Texas Tech, they're 3-0, 16th ranked Utah 3-0. Another nice battle on paper, undefeated matchups, undefeated teams heading into week 3. Where are we going to lay our hat in this one to start things off?
Think we're gonna go Utah, and just to quote my cousin Vinny or paraphrase it, the three what? Yeah, that's right. The 3 points are going to the Utah Utes here this weekend. I've always been a big Utah guy. I
Right.
know I'm full of jokes. What can I say?
That's not bad. That's not bad at all.
I've always been a big Utah guy. They're coming off a pretty down season by Kyle Whittingham standards. If you go back to right before when they got into the Big 12, they won 2 Pac-12 titles in a row. Everyone remembers that one Pac-12 title season where they beat USC twice that one year, really beat the snot out of them, to put it lightly. So when you see them go to the Big 12, you're like, okay, Utah is going to carry over. They'll be fine. They'll probably run the Big 12, which is a very random conference. And then sure enough, injuries just piled up the wazoo last year, and now they're finally free of the Cam Rising era for how good he was. It was just all injury for his last couple of years at Utah, being a seventh-year quarterback and whatnot. But Devin Dampier's really stepped it up this year at quarterback for Utah. I really like them. I know Texas Tech is not the Big 12 darling, but everyone's like, okay, if there's one team that's going to start rising now after Iowa State made the Big 12 championship game last year, they're good again. But everyone's like, oh well, you got a billionaire donating money to Texas Tech, and they pretty much bought an entire new roster. How's it going to work out? Well, they're 3-0, they're top 20, just like Utah is. But this game is in Utah, Q, and I think to me, this is pretty much a coin flip type of game. I know the 3-point spread doesn't necessarily reflect that per BetMGM. This could very well be a push, because I could see it being a very close game. But I think with the way Devin Dampier is playing so far, the fact that it's at Utah, I'm just going to trust my good old Utes here to cover the 3 here and get a win, and go to 4-0 after week 4 this coming weekend.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be pointed out. We always talk about these matchups kind of with a grain of salt, right? Leading in to the respective games. So you look at Texas Tech and you're like, man, they can score a lot of points. Okay,
Mm,
Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Kent State, Oregon State, right? You know, 67, 67, 45. It's
mm,
unbelievable what they're doing offensively. Again, a little bit of a different animal when you're going against a top 20 team. Now, conversely, the same thing. Utah comes in, they can score a lot of points. They put up
mm.
63 against Cal Poly, 31 against Wyoming. The reason I bring all this up is because I suspect this could potentially also be a high scoring game, and the total set at 57.5.
Right.
Do you believe this game will go over that?
It very well could, and I do want to point out Texas Tech has a good offense as well. Let's not forget that. Baron Moore, a quarterback, 11 touchdowns already this season, only just 1 interception. He's got almost 1,000 yards, I believe, through just 3 games. So he's played really, really well as expected. And I think it should be noted as well, when you look at Utah's offense, it does go through Devin Dampier. So I think that's why people are going to be like, well, I'm a little leery on Utah because they don't have a balanced approach. It's Devin Dampier's arm, and it's his feet. He's going to run. I think he actually leads the team in rushing so far through 3 games. Now, again, depending upon who they're playing, is that a good sign? Is that a bad sign? Should you take that with a grain of salt? Who knows? I just like the fact that Utah's at home here. I do see it as being a high-scoring game. Generally, with a Kyle Whittingham type team with Utah, they can muddy it up, make it dirty, from the sense of Texas Tech can get a little sloppy on offense. But with the way they've played so far, these 2 teams, I would suspect to hit that over. If it's listed at 57.5 or even more, I could see this being one of those 37-31 type of games in the end.
Yeah, which, hey, you'll take that, right?
Yeah.
Another good battle here. Big Ten matchup. 21st ranked Michigan 2-1, and how about this little surprise? Nebraska, the
Mm.
Cornhuskers 3-0. I was a big Nebraska fan back in the day with Tommy Frazier. Michigan's laying 2.5 in this one. And as I mentioned, Nebraska, again, really haven't been tested. This will be their first test of the season. I mean, let's just call it for what it is. And then you got Michigan. They had the big win to open up the season, and then they stubbed their toe against Oklahoma, and then they come back and they take it out on poor little Central Michigan, putting up 63 points in that one. So again, nice matchup, good battle. Obviously, a little more difference in an opponent here for Michigan taking on Nebraska.
Yeah, Nebraska's looking pretty good as far as I'm concerned. As you mentioned, 3-0 on the season. Dylan Raiola's already got 8 touchdowns. Again, the quality of competition has not been there so far for Nebraska compared to Michigan. Now, granted, the one tough team they played on the road, Oklahoma, they lost that game. There's still no Sharon Moore for this game at Nebraska. It'll still be Biff Poggi as the interim head coach, so that could be a factor. But I don't know, Q. Just for some reason, everyone buys into that Matt Rule year 3 magic, and I do believe this could happen this year. I need to still do that wait and see approach because it's the aura of Nebraska. It's not Temple, it's not Baylor. Can he really pull something like that off again with a program like this that has history, dating back now almost 30 years ago at this point, that's still starved for another era like that, coming from the Big 12 into the Big 10 over the last 15, 20 years, whatever it's been since they've been in the Big 10. So I think right now, from a pure talent perspective, I think Michigan has the quarterback advantage, but Dylan Raiola is a little bit more proven because he's played better so far this season and he has more experience. But I think if you're going to take a coin flip, I think you'd be fine with a true freshman, Bryce Underwood. Justice Haynes is a really, really good running back. How does Nebraska contain him? The fact that this line, again, going back to my old rule about road favorites, it's tough for me to take them. But the fact that this game is less than a field goal right now,
Yeah.
based on that line at 2.5,
Yep.
I'm not afraid of taking Michigan here. And again, Nebraska to me is still a wait and see approach. And, they have to prove it to me as someone who maybe bet on them later in the season and maybe pick them to be that one of those dark horse teams out of the Big Ten to make the college football playoff, which some analysts, even those at On 3, have actually said that Nebraska could be that team. One Josh Pate, for instance, who everyone loves Josh Pate. He's like, hey, I could see it. I'm predicting 10 wins now. He's like increased his prediction for Nebraska. So, but I'm still in that wait and see approach. You got to prove it to me. So right now I'm laying it with Michigan -2.5 on the road in Lincoln. And then, that'll kind of catapult them further as Sharon Moore eventually comes back from his suspension. And of course, then we'll eventually talk about, okay, can Michigan beat Ohio State again? So this won't be the end of Nebraska to me for the season, Cubes. We're only a third of the way through the season, but I still like Michigan just a little bit more right now.
A game that we totally got. I mean, I would say I got more wrong. And I know Vince is tuning in right now. All three of us really with the 17.5. South Florida got absolutely
Yeah.
humbled by Miami 49-12. And it leads into the next game, Miami versus Florida. And, listen, I know this is kind of that interstate battle, right? Florida 1-2, Miami 3-0. Florida's coming off a loss against LSU. They lost to South Florida, 2 straight losses. They haven't been able to run the football particularly well, and I think that's going to be an issue against Miami. Listen, explain this to me. So it's like I'm a 2-year-old. Explain this to me. So last week you have a game in which the line was 17.5. I think it closed right around 18.
Mm-hmm.
Now I would say South Florida is better than Florida, but Florida is 1-2, and yet Miami's only laying 7.5 in this one. And last week it was 17.5.
It is funny how those odds work, considering USF just beat Florida 2 weeks ago in Gainesville, right? And they had, they were ranked, and then they were everyone's Cinderella story through 2 games this season, or 3 games, whatever the case may be. And all of a sudden they get waxed by Miami. I didn't think Miami was going to blow them out like that. I figured Miami was going to win the game, maybe by, considering it's a 17.5 point line. I'm like, okay, 14, late touchdown, late touchdown, you win. I don't know, 35-21 or something, 34-17, and you just cover. But I didn't expect that. They absolutely blew them out of the water. If you take stock into what USF has done this year, then you have to say that's a pretty darn impressive win for Miami, considering I know USF is not a Power 4 team, but they're one of those Group of 5 contenders that could come back around at the end of the year and say, hey, we're trying to vie for that lone Group of 5 spot in the college football playoffs. So that is a pretty impressive win by Miami. Miami looks really, really good right now. They look like a more complete team right now than they did last year, ironically, without a number 1 overall pick at quarterback. Now that they have Carson Beck, who transferred in from Georgia. As far as the line is concerned, I guess this is just, it's a Power 4 matchup. Florida's still that SEC team, but I mean, just like last week, Q, I was like, I'm looking at LSU, where Florida comes in. I'm like 7.5. I'm going to take the 7.5 here. And LSU, I know it wasn't a great game by any means for LSU offensively. And I think it was later revealed that Garrett Nussmeier has been dealing with a torso injury. Now, whether that's vastly affected the offense, I guess is to be determined over the next couple of weeks. But the fact that they still covered that in a bad offensive game, realistically for LSU last week, I know Brian Kelly was, in everybody's face immediately after the post game, of course, but the fact that they still covered that, I'm just like, why wouldn't you take Miami minus 7.5 right now? Because frankly, I can't trust Florida at all anymore, considering DJ Lagway was picked off 5 times last week. They can't run the ball much, despite the fact they have a good running back in Jaden Ball, who can also catch out of the backfield. And it seemed like anytime Florida was trying to get something done offensively last week, it was through Jaden Ball, not DJ Lagway, who turned it over 5 times. Miami has a much more explosive offense right now than LSU. So points of playing for the Hurricanes. I just can't see Florida rebounding until, this could be the one game where it's like, oh my God, they saved Billy Napier's job by upsetting Miami. You know what I mean? But I can't see it. I've put too much trust in Florida over the past year and a half, 2 years with Billy Napier. They've consistently let me down. And I think just judging by what LSU was able to do last week at home against Florida with that amount, I think it was actually the same line, 7.5. So Miami, who I think is right now is better than LSU. Maybe the defense isn't as good as LSU's, but that offense is ridiculous. The way offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson runs it right now, Carson Beck's playing right now the best
Really
he's ever played. To me, this is Miami. I'm thinking Q, maybe a 14, 15, 21-point win here for Miami. I think they're going to destroy them, actually.
Does a dominating win like this, kind of to Vince's point, believe in Cristobal now, right? He says, do I have to believe in Cristobal now? Was talking to a U fan, and I think the last 5 are where they fall short in the season on the road of VT and Pitt. So if this is a dominating performance, do we really start to take this team, this university, and Cristobal as the legit when we're talking about college football playoff series?
I think as far as taking them legit, I think you have to even get dating back to last year. I know they kind of blew it last year, especially with that loss to Syracuse, which essentially kept them out of the college football playoff. If they win that game, they're 11-1. They're playing for the conference title against Clemson, or I believe it would have been Clemson. I forget who got in last year between Clemson and SMU over Miami based on the tiebreakers. I believe it was Clemson. In any event, Miami's playing for the ACC title last year. If they beat Syracuse, they're 11-1, and whether they win or lose that game, they're going to get into the playoffs. So they're 10-2. They miss out. Bad loss to Syracuse. But I think with the way Cristobal's been able to attack the portal, the way he's been recruiting, the fact that they won 10 games last year, and you get a guy like Cam Moore, I know it was via the transfer portal, but the fact that you can get a guy like that, and now a guy like Carson Beck, who's seemingly resurrecting his college career after, kind of going down the dumps a little bit at Georgia, despite the fact the stat line would tell you differently, but the perception around Carson Beck really wasn't that positive last year. And plus the injury obviously threw him, threw another wrench in those plans for Georgia as well. So to me, I'm buying stock in Mario Cristobal. If they dominate Florida, I think they're definitely going to be buying stock, more so than they were even just last week. The ACC is Miami's to lose now. I know SMU's still lurking.
Yep.
Florida State's obviously a factor again, at least through their first 2 games. Clemson losing their second game of the year already, kind of not a non-factor, but really major question marks. So to me, the ACC is once again now Miami's to lose. If they don't win the ACC, not going to say Marcus was going to get fired, but I think you'll definitely see the pressure cooker start to build up with the Hurricanes. But as far as like Virginia Tech and Pitt are concerned, Virginia Tech's a dumpster fire right now, having just fired Brent Pry. They just got waxed by Old Dominion of all teams.
Which, by the way, we said that coach was on the hot seat prior to the season.
Yeah,
we were talking about
he gets fired in the same weekend. Deshaun Foster. I didn't expect that, but I know. But UCLA's been horrendous this year.
Yeah.
I didn't actually expect Deshaun Foster to get fired in the middle of his second season. Brent Pry a little bit more logical, I'd say, as far as coach firings are concerned. But both those programs are dumpster fires. But relating it back to Miami, I don't think they're going to have too much trouble with Virginia Tech. Maybe they'll stub their toe somewhere else. If they do, Pitt, maybe a game where they stub their toe, is Pitt's always going to be, one of those rough teams where you're just like, how the heck are they beating them that they lose, the next week or something like that. So, but I think Miami's going to wax Florida this week at this point. I would love to be, my childhood self as a Florida fan would love to be proven wrong, but I mean, Miami, I think, is just too good right now. We're talking, if they wax them, Q, I think we're talking about, all right, this team should go 11-1, if not 12-0, win the ACC, and we're talking maybe a top 2 seed in the college football playoff.
I can see them maybe tripping up against SMU. I know SMU's on the road against TCU this weekend, but I can see them maybe tripping up against SMU.
I could see that too. Yeah, I mean, let's not forget the fact that SMU is an intriguing football team. I know they're 2-1 right now, and the fact they lost to Baylor in that overtime game, people are like, all right, we're ready to write SMU off now, because they've beaten, I think it was like East Tennessee, and I don't even know who the hell they played last week. I think it was Missouri State or something. So when you look at their schedule so far, it's like, well, they've beaten 2 teams they should have, and they lost in overtime.
Right.
That maybe we're buying stock in again in Baylor, but now all of a sudden, they're kind of like that Jekyll and Hyde team right now. So I'm, just on an aside, I'm interested to see how SMU plays against TCU on the road. Because now TCU is one of those popular teams where, all right, if it's not Utah or Iowa State, it's like, oh yeah, TCU's back in that Big 12 picture. So as far as SMU is concerned with an out-of-conference game, yeah, I will. If SMU plays well or wins that game against TCU, then yeah, I'd say Miami's next circled game is probably going to be that TCU game, or excuse me, that SMU game, because I believe that, if I remember correctly, I think they play them before they play Florida State. I could be wrong. Actually,
Correct, they do.
Florida State,
No.
yeah,
No,
Florida
Miami plays Florida State, then later
that's
on
the
they
next
play
game. So I
SMU.
think if they, just kind of bring it all together, if Miami blows Florida out of the water, then it's like, all right, they will be favorites, maybe even be favorites on the road against Florida State at this point. And it's like, all right, Florida State circled, SMU circled, which game trips them up? And then, but at this point, I think Miami is one of the best teams in the country, at least through 3 games.
Yeah. And SMU did lose. I'm sorry, they did beat Missouri State, but by 18, 28 to 10.
Yeah,
Really
that's what I'm saying. East Tennessee, Missouri State, it's like,
Yeah.
I get not buying stock into them right now.
Yep.
But they are by no means all of a sudden like last year, them making the conference title game, that was no fluke. They were a good football team. And again, don't forget, they did make the college football playoff. Controversy aside, if you want to play that card, they made the playoff last year. This team is not too far off, I would say, from that team last year.
I think the next game really under the radar, because then we can argue, okay, does the winner of Illinois and Indiana, they have a shot to go to the college football playoff? And think about this, right? I mean, you're probably nothing less than 10-2 knocking on the tournament door. Illinois has been really good, dominant defense performance against Duke. You win against Indiana, you got who left? Ohio State is the only game it's likely to be the underdog. There's no Oregon, Penn State, or Michigan to face. If Indiana pulls it off, now all of a sudden Oregon at home, and home against Penn State are the only 2 likely losses. Now, this game opened at 4.5, and it's sitting at 4.5.
Yeah, I've seen BetMGM has it at 4.5. I've seen other books where I think even ESPN Bet had it at 5.5, actually, which is fascinating to me, because for some reason I never thought I'd be talking about Illinois and Indiana as one of the best games of the weekend for all we know. So, but I do like Illinois in this game. I know they're a road dog, but I just buy them a little bit more than Indiana this year. I think Indiana is still really good. When you take into account what they did last year, kind of rebuilt the team or retool the team through the portal. Fernando Mendoza, their quarterback, who transferred in from Cal, has fit in seamlessly to Curt Cignetti's offense and the program. But Luke Altmaier, guy who turned down, $2 million offers to go to an SEC school, unnamed right now. But the fact
really efficient.
The fact that he's still there, Brett Bielema's got something cooking. I think, I think your point is valid. The winner of this game will be sitting pretty at 4-0. I think they're both they're top. Actually, Illinois is top 10 right now. They're number 9 in the latest AP poll. But I think the winner of this game is going to be sitting pretty. It's like, hey, we're 4-0, top 15, top 10 team, depending upon who it is. And it's like, yeah, this is a legitimate college football playoff contender. And then you finally get your answer, at least through a third of the season. Who's that 4th team in the Big Ten? As we know, it's Ohio State, Penn State, and with the way Oregon's been playing, my goodness. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Oregon just runs the table again at this point. But who's that 4th team in the Big Ten? And should the Big Ten get 4 bids, who's it gonna be? Is it Illinois? Is it Indiana? Could it be Nebraska? Obviously, Michigan's still in the equation of 2 as a ranked team, but I think Illinois. I think that they have a slightly better quarterback right now. I like Fegan, their running back, who's pretty good. I just think with the way Illinois is playing right now, Q, Gabe Jacques, I hope I'm saying his name right. I love their linebacker, Jacques, Gabe Jacques, whatever his name is. He's really fun to watch. Their defense, I think, is a little bit better than Indiana's right now. So the Indiana being a home favorite doesn't surprise me, but I do like Illinois right here, plus 4.5.
Yeah, I tend to lean, in that direction as well. I think they're a touchdown better because you got a great defense, not going to put as much strain on the offense, but the offense is yet to turn the ball over. They've been very judicious with the football. And then look, they don't get penalized. They have really good special teams. Yeah, they play really good against the run.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Indiana's going to be able to run the football. You're going to have to kind of beat us over the top. Now, I also look at this game where which team's going to generate more of a pass rush, right? And that's, that maybe is Indiana's, their shot right there. But if they don't get to the quarterback, then they're going to be in trouble, right? Because Illinois' front four, their offensive front, I should say, has really been good in pass production.
Mm-hmm.
And if Indiana can get some negative plays, like you get that tackle for loss, right? Because right now I pulled it up, they lead the nation in tackle for losses, averaging about 11. If you can get Illinois in that 2nd and 13,
Yeah.
3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, then obviously now you're talking about possession for possession, getting the
Right.
ball back, limiting possessions, getting them off the field. Maybe that's a way they hang in there. Other than that, I just don't think point for point they can match Illinois.
Yeah, I think Illinois is a little bit better right now. To your point, if you want to make Illinois one-dimensional and then just make them try to beat you with the passing game, they can do that. Obviously, it'll be a little bit more challenging because if you take a guy like Fegan out of the equation and you put it all on Luke Altmaier, I'm not going to say it's going to be an automatic Indiana win, but I think Altmaier is really, really good, one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten. So that would certainly help. I just think Illinois is a little bit better right now. I think they're, if you want to call them this, like they're this year's Indiana coming out of the Big Ten, so to speak.
All right. Lastly, we've got Michigan State against USC. I double checked because at first glance, I'm like, where did this line open? Or, what was the number? I caught 19 and a half. Now it's I'm seeing 17 and a half right now. I'm seeing USC laying 17 and a half. This game to me, I don't want to have the same mindset as last week with that South Florida game. So here's
Yeah.
my quote: look but don't touch game.
Yeah, probably. Funny enough, my look don't touch game actually was, I think, one of the marquee games of the weekend. Probably the marquee game if you're going to go by the SEC standards. Auburn, Oklahoma. That was my look don't touch game. Is like, again, I told you before. As a quick aside right here, I can't trust Oklahoma. If they win this game, then all right, maybe I will start trusting Oklahoma. But they're almost a touchdown favorite at home against Auburn, who actually is playing well right now. So I'm just like, I don't want to touch that. I know for a fact I'm going to screw that up in some sort of fashion. So this one I'm kind of taking a swing at here, considering USC's offense really, really good right now. Lincoln Riley seems to have things clicking right now with Jaden Mayava, their new quarterback, who we saw a little bit last year. Now, again, the quality of competition, not up to snuff like the Big Ten, of course, for USC. I think the same goes for Michigan State, but I think Michigan State is better than, being almost a 3-touchdown dog right here on the road. I think what Aiden Child's been able to do, Jonathan Smith kind of going, year 2 of his program building out there in Michigan State. I just think they'll be able to cover this one. USC's step up in competition. I know they're number 25 this week, so they're back in the rankings. Like, all right, is USC, we talked about who's that 4th team in the Big Ten. Maybe USC is a shot now because they've looked pretty good through the first 3 games. But I just think that offense has to come back down to earth a little bit. I think this is the week in their Big Ten opener. Not saying they're going to lose this one, but I think Michigan State is a little bit better than what USC has already faced so far this year. I think they do cover it here. Maybe they lose, like I said, 35 to, 20, and they're never really in the game. But at that point, they do cover. I think 18.5 is just too big of a number for USC to cover here. So taking a bit of a swing here, Q, but I think I'm going to buy a little bit of stock here in Michigan State in year 2 under Jonathan Smith.
And I would do the same thing. I mean, I like these plays. I like these picks. Strong games this weekend, college football wise. I did want to ask you one question because it is a conversation I'm going to have with the listening audience, and it's kind of it's off the beaten path right now. But there was a lot to make of Tom Brady being in the coach's box the other
Mhm,
night. Obviously, minority owner, Raiders, calling games for Fox, giving him a little more
mhm,
wiggle room, production meetings, what he can say or what he can ask, what information is privy to him. Fox is paying him a substantial amount of money.
mhm.
And obviously, if you're Pete Carroll, if you're Chip Kelly, any type of information you can get from an all-time great, right? Um, you know, 1,000 MVPs, 1,000 Super Bowls to go
Mhm.
to feel. You're going to absorb all that. As a broadcaster, we take a step back now. If we're making that money, okay, fine. But we take a step back right now. Do you see any conflict of interest in having Brady in the coach's box, in the owner's box with the headset on, which is really the issue, and then also being
Right.
part of that Fox broadcast team?
What he did was not illegal, but based on what the NFL has written in stone right now as far as the rules are concerned, I think
Perception,
yeah,
optics.
yeah, I think perception and optics is where this whole thing is kind of run out of control a little bit. Personally, if I'm just talking about if my surface level take, I really don't care, to be
I
honest with
I
you.
know. I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
I don't care. I think from a perception and optics perspective, I think that's where you can get into a little bit of trouble because obviously, if you're an owner of a franchise, or I'll use myself as an example. I don't own stock in Rutgers Wrestling, but I've broadcasted for the team for over a decade. Now, granted, do I have a rooting interest in the program? Sure. Now, is that going to prevent me from asking questions or maybe even say I want to have more information about the team itself or teams they're competing against? Sure, but I'm doing that as my job as a broadcaster to provide storylines and information to the audience that's not off the record. I
Mhm.
think at this point, when you're Tom Brady, because he's still barred from production meetings in person and from going to other team facilities that are not named the Las Vegas Raiders, almost like the Oakland Raiders. So I think from the rule following perspective, he's doing everything by the book and to a T right now, right? Okay, but the perception is, well, what is he actually talking to Chip Kelly with week to week? Did he learn something from an opponent that they're going to play later in the year that he broadcasted within the first few weeks of
Well,
the
here you go. They play the
right?
Bears, and he's calling
Right.
that
I
game.
think that's what everyone's freaking out about, but it's also okay because he's still allowed to, I guess, gain that information or acquire that information because he can still do virtual meetings. It's a weird gray area, but it's also on the Bears, for instance, as an example, it's on them to give him what
Nothing.
they want out
Yeah.
there.
In this
So I
case, nothing.
yeah, right. In this case, nothing. So I think it's on both parties to say, let's just say Ben Johnson reveals a weird tidbit about the Bears that the Raiders can use for a competitive advantage. Is Ben Johnson going to give that to Brady, knowing that there could possibly be a meeting between Brady and Chip Kelly and perhaps Pete Carroll? Now, if he knows that, it's on him now to either reveal said tidbit or keep that to himself. So I think it goes both ways here. As far as him being in the booth, that's his right as an owner. I think he had the coach's headset on. He really can't really, I don't think he can actually communicate with the coach and say, like, hey, I see this, and like, run this play. He was also looking at, I think, the Microsoft Surface tablets, which is the only thing the NFL allows you to look at in that type of scenario. So he's doing everything by the book as far as I'm concerned, based on the reports that we've read and written up as well. So I don't have a problem with it. I think the perception just kind of gets out of whack because people just want something to scream about, especially when it comes to him because of the quote unquote conflict of interest where he's broadcasting, but also has a stake in the league or as far or in a team, I should say. But let's not forget, and before I go off another 30-minute rant here, going well over my time, but let's not forget that the NFL now has an ownership stake within ESPN. Was it the 10% deal right here where
Yeah.
they, it's the ESPN and the NFL have it now, like have that media deal where they own parts of the properties right here. So
Correct.
let's
Correct.
not go off on a huge tangent here about who owns what information at this point, where nothing's independent anymore at this point, Q, because of all the independent content and with the way the big media companies work nowadays, in relation with the league, especially with sports gambling. You could write a thesis on this type of stuff. Everything's intertwined at this point. So as far as conflict of interest is concerned, you could probably find that with pretty much everything at this point.
Yeah. Uh, It is a Woosah Wednesday. Man says, just enjoying a non-angry Q in Costco's wholesale size college football nonsense, rightfully so. To think the guy who deflated footballs is not cheating in his ownership role is pretty naive from my viewpoint. Furthermore, the NFL has never tried to stop him, specifically.
Well, hang on. Let me respond to that before I get out of here. Just another book plug right here. As I had Gary Myers on, right? I had Gary Myers on, but he reveals in this book that what Roger Goodell wanted to do initially, which was just basically throw the book at Goodell. Throw the book at Belichick and Brady for the whole deflating
Correct.
football scandal.
Suspend him. Yeah.
Yeah, but of course, he said, "Okay, I won't do that as long as Bill apologizes," which he never did. So he's like, "All right, I missed my shot there." So I think Roger Goodell has learned from his mistakes. They wanted to throw the book at him. Come on, he was suspended 4 games for deflating footballs, and it was the Colts were playing with the same footballs. The PSI was going lower. I'm not a Brady defender by any means, but it's cold weather. Balls are getting deflated, and like they weren't going to win that game anyway. Come on. Let's not go down a rabbit hole right there.
Yeah, shrivel it up like a scared turtle. All right, don't forget you can give Nick a follow at Nick Costco. 59 College Sports on 3 Sports play-by-play, RU Wrestling, and Cal Live. What high school games of note this weekend?
We are off this week because Mainland's on the road at Cherokee, but we'll have the game next Thursday against St. Augustine Prep. But I just talked to ESPN's Sam Acho today about the All-State Good Works team, so check that out on my YouTube, as well as diving into some college football topics as well. So good to talk to Sam again. Maybe that'll lead me to another All-State Good Works alum, Tim Tebow. Maybe I'll have him back on for, I believe,
you love
time
yourself.
number 5. I should have him on speed dial.
He loves doing the pod with you. He loves jumping on with you.
I might need to get him on speed dial at this point in order to get him on before the season keeps rolling on here towards the playoffs. So, but yeah, that's what's going on. No wrestling news yet, Q, and high school football resumes for me next Thursday. And then, like I said, just keep plugging it all here. Go Rutgers on Friday, little blackout game against Iowa. Home dogs, the Scarlet Knights in Piscataway.
Get out of here. Go enjoy your weekend. Always appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Q.
All right, our guy who gives you he drops knowledge all over the place, and as we like to say, at a very cost-effective price. Cherokee is a former rival. That's right, Cherokee and Lenape. Michael chimes in. Go Rutgers. Sarge chimes in. Q. There's absolutely a conflict of interest. It's utterly ridiculous. They're giving that man a headset. What the hell are you talking about? I didn't say there wasn't. The NFL said on Tuesday, Sarge, there's no policy in place that prohibits owners or limited partners, in this situation, Raiders limited partner Tom Brady or any owner, from sitting in the coach's booth or wearing a headset during a game. Listen, if Ben Johnson, who, oh, by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, his team just got lit up by 52 friggin' points against the Lions. If this guy's dumb enough to show his hand to Tom Brady, then come on, man. Come on. Shouldn't even be a head coach. Tom in Summers Point chimes in. I'm surprised you're not crying, bitching, and whining about the tush push like everyone else. I mean, we're having a good show on a Wednesday. We had a good spot with Costco. I'm going to get into the passing of my man Robert Redford. Talk a little movies with you guys. We're talking about Brady. We're talking college football, and now all of a sudden, you nitwit, you want to sit there and say I was complaining. I haven't said a friggin' word. I haven't said a word about the tush push. I haven't said anything because I don't care. I really don't give a damn about the tush push and the NFL and banning it. I don't care. If the Eagles want to go 99 friggin' yards of fanny pushes and a team can't stop them, tough shit. Do I like the play? No. Do they always jump? Yes. Do they jump off sides consistently? Absolutely. But the NFL's not going to do anything about it. Schefter turned around. Oh, this game was lost in March, in May. Shut up. Like, seriously. Get out of here. The Kansas City Chiefs didn't lose that game in February, March, April, or May because the league decided we're not going to ban it I'm telling you, it's it is just it's getting to the point now where and listen, you're talking to someone that absolutely despises the Philadelphia Eagles. I can't stand the Eagles. I can't stand anything friggin' green, the fan base, anything. The friggin' bunker boys, the little crabs, little rats, nothing. The whack-a-moles. I can't stand it. I can't stand any of it because they've been a successful franchise. They're winning playoff games. They're winning friggin' Super Bowls. Okay, so there's a gluttony of jealousy, right? But it's just I don't care anymore about this outrage because, again, of who's jumping off sides or who's creeping through, past where the ball is, and it should be, a false start penalty. It should be an offsides penalty. It should be a flag. They do whatever they want. Then stop them. Seriously, stop them. Like, we can talk about all the missed false starts by the Eagles, but you know what I can also do? I can go back over the last 3, 4, 5 years of the Kansas City Chiefs friggin' dominance in the NFL. The dominance in the NFL. Okay? And I can sit there and talk about all the penalties that were called against the opposition and no flags called for the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't want to hear it anymore. It's just saltiness, it's sour grapes. And no, I'm not going to breathe because we started off a Woosah Wednesday with a really nice, relaxing show. We had Costco, we had savings, we had football knowledge. It was kumbaya. Now all of a sudden, I haven't said a word about the fanny push. I'm on board with against the Eagles and the Bunker Boys. I don't even know. It's, the Bunker Boys 2-0. 2-0, and yet, let's be honest, de facto has just kind of been quiet. And let's just get this out of the way, too. You want to friggin' mark the tape at 4:51 on a Woosah Wednesday? The Chiefs' run is over, man. Their run is over. It's done. It's done. Patrick Mahomes, he's losing trust in Travis Kelce. Andy Reid is reverting back to the things that drove him out of Philadelphia. They can't run the football. They've got no offensive playmakers. Everything is falling on Patrick Mahomes. The defense can only keep them in the game for so long. The run is over. It's over. You've got younger teams, hungrier teams right now in the AFC. Denver, the Chargers. You still got the Ravens. You still got Buffalo. You've got teams that are making that ascend. The Kansas City Chiefs, this mystique, this magic, and I'll do you one better. I'll do you one better. Part of me actually thinks the Giants not only cover on Sunday night, but they might win the freaking game outright against Kansas City. Now, what are we going to say when the Kansas City Chiefs are 0-3? Who are you going to blame? Who are you going to cry at? Who are you going to call? Seriously. The Philadelphia Eagles in their last 20 games are 19-1. I'm like, wow. It doesn't matter how they get it done, man. It's annoying as hell, but they win football games. They win football games. Now, if you want to start to tell me a team in the NFC that can line up mano a mano in the trenches and give the Eagles a fight, I would say the Rams. I would say Green Bay. I still maintain Washington. Okay? I'm not a believer in anyone else in the AFC West yet. Yet. I will see you again, but not yet. It's not about being a believer. Okay, follow me. You might not be as high on some other teams as, say, I am. But I'm more down on Kansas City because I think some of these issues are not fixable. That's the problem I have with Kansas City. I think some of these issues on both sides of the football, they're starting to show that they're exposed. They're exposed, and you can't mask certain things. Travis Kelce having that outburst because Patrick Mahomes isn't getting him the football at times. Well, you saw when he did actually put a perfect pass in his mitts. It's a goal line pick. Should have been a reception, should have been a touchdown. He's losing confidence and faith in Travis Kelce. He's not the same tight end that he once was. He's just not. He's just not. So this, for years it was always this air of instability with Kansas City. We would say they were invincible. No one could beat Kansas City. Or last year, Man and I kept going back and forth. I said they're leaking oil. And I recall you would say, no, it's a mark of a really good team because they're winning games that other teams couldn't. That might be the case, but eventually doesn't your luck kind of run out? Blocking field goals, blocking punts, winning on field goals, getting picks late. I understand luck is the residue, it's the design of preparation. But in the NFL landscape, that's not always the case. This team is not, they're not invincible. They don't have, I don't believe anyone fears going against Kansas City. I don't. I don't. I really don't. And part of me actually thinks the Giants might outright win this game. Yeah. Part of me really believes that. And you've got an opportunity to not deliver the knockout punch. See, the Giants' defense, it's good. It's not great, but they're good. Now, do I believe the offense can sustain what we saw against Dallas for another 14, 15 weeks? I don't. That's the offense they envisioned during preseason. But I'm telling you, I think they're getting Kansas City, believe it or not. If this was 2 years ago, I would say Kansas City would beat them 35-10. It's not. And the other point is when you're struggling on both sides of the football, what do? You do desperate things. You take chances. Defensively, you try to cheat. Offensively, what was the thing that Andy Reid did last week that everyone's talking about? The game against the Eagles. It's something that Andy Reid has done for years when it comes to being an aggressive guy, an aggressive head coach. The fact that they went for it deep in their end, tie game 10-10, fourth and short, showed me they panicked. It showed me they panic. And how about this? The fact that it's a design run for Kareem Hunt and it was sniffed at. It was sniffed out. It was sniffed out. They're not the same team, guys. They're not this. When the Bulls were winning every year, you just knew you were going to get waxed, man. They never leaked oil. When the 49ers had that dynasty, you had to pick them off. You had to play the perfect game, and it was so rare. The Patriots, the Giants had to play a perfect game on both sides of the football, especially defensively. You see teams leak a little bit of oil, but Kansas City, to me, I don't think they recovered from last year's Super Bowl loss. I honestly believe, when we said the 49ers a couple years ago broke the Eagles, I believe the Eagles broke the Kansas City Chiefs. They dominated them, man. You've got to go through the whole offseason in a game in front of hundreds of millions and billions of people around the world. The biggest stage, the biggest day in the world of sports, Super Bowl Sunday, and you don't even show up ill-prepared, uninterested, not engaged, mistakes, penalties, flags, turnovers. You couldn't stop the Philadelphia Eagles. They did whatever. The Eagles could have put up 60 points. The Eagles could have potentially made that the most lopsided Super Bowl ever. They didn't. But that last throw, that touchdown to Hurts, I believe, to Smith, was that FU toss. That was the knife. That was the mortal blow in the heart of the Kansas City Chiefs. And I don't believe they recovered. I don't. Will they win their 9 or 10 games? Yeah, but now I'm starting to lean. If they lose to the Giants, I'm really starting to believe they might not even make the playoffs. And listen, you're allowed to have a down year in the NFL. After the run that they had, you're allowed to have a down year. You're absolutely allowed to have one. You're right about this year with the Chiefs, Q, but the problem is I trust is that I trust that front office to draft well and get key free agents to reload in a way we don't with others. That's fair, which means, again, you could, you know, have that, that down year. Chiefs win easy in a get right game this week. Sorry, you might be 100% correct. That line 6.5, 7. I think the Giants keep it competitive. To be honest, if they can get to Patrick Mahomes, they can keep this game competitive. But there's also a side, a rationale, a thought where they're 0-2. Everyone is saying the sky is falling, panic mode, talking heads, national yappers, the mothership. What the hell's wrong with the Chiefs? The dynasty's over. And you're right. Maybe they come out and it's 35-6. And on a man up Lunes Mentiroso Manolo Monday, I'm sitting here sulking because the Giants are 0-3 again. Right? You might be right, man. You might be right. You might be onto something. But I just, again, I don't like the makeup of this team. And I think, a couple Kansas City fans were tuning in the other day. And you guys tell me, because I believe I try to be as fair. Honestly, all jokes aside, I call it the way I see it. When you have a player that's supposed to be a Hall of Fame caliber player in Travis Kelce, and he has that implosion. Remember he did that a couple years ago with Andy Reid, and everyone chalked it up to he's just a fiery, immature guy. It's so adamant when he's not getting the football. That tells me that Mahomes is looking to his secondary, his third. He's checking off. He's looking away from Travis Kelce. Now, why is that? Has Kelce lost a step? Are they icing him out? Are they phasing him out? Has Mahomes lost trust in Travis Kelce? I think it's a little bit of everything. And he can't take it because he's got such a massive ego. But here's the problem if you're Travis Kelce. When you bitch, you whine, you complain, you go on a tangent, you throw your helmet down, you're kicking your fist in the air and punching the air, and you got that dog mentality because the camera's constantly on you. Catch the friggin' football when it hits you in the hands. It's as simple as that. Catch the football. Catch the football, Travis Kelce, because Mahomes placed it perfectly. He just didn't come down with it. And that was one of those plays in the game, turning point in the game. I mean, that's just the bottom line. You've been able to catch the football, over 1,300 times in your career? Over 1,000 times in your career, I should say. Over 1,000 times in your career. A Hall of Fame career. But let's not get it twisted. He's not the same guy. Travis Kelce in 2020 had 12 touchdown receptions, had 1,300 yards, had over 100 receptions. The next year, 93, 984, 5 touchdowns. The next year, 97, 823, 3 touchdowns. He's not the same tight end. He's getting older. He's 35, 36. And the problem is, this is where I really think Kansas City has problems. They can't run the football. And your quarterback is your leading rusher. And when you have plays designed for your quarterback, it's a recipe for disaster. It is a recipe for disaster. I think he's a locker room problem. I think if he doesn't get his receptions, I don't care about the Swifties. Let him come at me. Who cares? What is that going to do? I'm going to get my 8 hours. And they are phasing him out. And I'm glad to see De Facto jumping on at 5 o'clock on a Wednesday because we're talking Eagles right now. I mean, what were your ears buzzing a little bit? Is that what happened? You decided, let me get out of the bunker. I'm 2-0, 19-1 in my last 20. I can do no wrong, quietly just going about my business. Chiefs are broken. They're going to win games, but they're not a juggernaut. They're just not. They're not. Chargers are playing good football. Denver should be kicking themselves. Denver let one get away against the Indianapolis Colts. And then, as I mentioned, Joe D in Philly says, okay, Q, who do you believe contend against the Eagles in the NFC? Well, I gave you my look, I'm still not discounting Washington. But I'm looking at Green Bay, young team, very well head coached, offensive weapons. They play very well against the run. They can get to the quarterback. The very young team. I think one of the youngest in the NFL. The Packers, you open up the season, you dominate Detroit, you dominate Washington. Those are two very good wins. You've got Cleveland coming up, Dallas coming up. You've got Cincinnati with no Joe Burrow. You got Arizona. Is it possible Green Bay gets off to that 6-7-0 start? We're going to see. Where's Green Bay? Let's just say, for argument's sake, they get through Cleveland, Dallas, and Cincinnati. Now you're 5-0. Okay, they stubbed their toe on the road against Arizona, 5-1. They beat Pittsburgh. They beat the Panthers. Now you're 7-1, and you got to match up in early November against the Philadelphia Eagles, Monday Night Football. I mean, that is a marquee game. And oh, by the way, Eagles got to travel to Green Bay. That's a home game for the Green Bay Packers. Now, we know the Eagles travel well, but point is, we'll start to see the litmus test 6-7 weeks out where Green Bay is. And anything could happen. Injuries can happen. KC tries to reunite Tyreek and Sideshow. That's too funny. Enough about KC. Let's talk about my Jags. We beat the Texans this week. We're right in the thick of things. Quality win downloading in a bad division. And John Bueller, I give him credit. He said he'd love the Colts to win their division. What were they, plus 1,800, 2,000? I think there's issues with Jacksonville. Did you, Vince, because you're not a legit Jags fan, you're still a Steelers fan at heart, but that's okay. You're a de facto Jags fan. That exchange between Trevor Lawrence and Cohen, and now you got some former players coming out on the tube and on their pod saying, hey, man, if Trevor Lawrence can't make it work with this guy, maybe it's the player. Maybe it's the player. Just, throwing that out there. Just throwing it out there. Matty Ice in Delaware chimes in. Q, did you see that Fields is out? How does that change offensively for the Jets? Matt is a Jets fan. Yep, Taylor's going to get the start against the Bucks. No Fields. That offense kind of reverted. I already started to look at it, and I'm telling you right now, I'm actually looking. These lines, I think we're going to get some blowouts this weekend. I think the Bills are absolutely going to shred Miami, like a 35-10 game. I really do. 35-6, 35-13. I kind of envision the same scenario happening with Tampa. The Jets are 0-2. Offensively, it's because Pittsburgh didn't make any adjustments in the second half. And that game was just one of those fluky, open up the season, defense behind the offense. Here we go. They did nothing against Buffalo. Now you're throwing in Taylor, who, to his credit, will throw the ball down the field. The Bucks, to me, you had two really nice gut check wins. That quarterback is the X factor. And I will go as far to say this. Okay. Baker Mayfield, over the last several years, I mean, the stats are staggering since he's left Cleveland, or since Cleveland's kind of pushed him out at the time. Baker Mayfield is playing. I mean, we can't argue this anymore, guys. He's playing like a top 5, 6, 7 quarterback in the NFL. He really is. He's playing like a top 5, 6, 7 quarterback. I mean, this guy brings so much to the table. We talk about being in that foxhole in the trenches. All the kid does is win, and he's as tough as they come. He really is. He's as tough as they come. So Cleveland says, get out of here with the injuries. He goes to Carolina, wins the game with the Rams, and then he bets on himself. His numbers are ridiculous. Over the last 3 seasons, he's thrown for well over 13,000 yards. I think he's got the most touchdowns in the entire NFL, or third in the NFL, first in the NFC over the last 3 seasons. He's come into his own, which is another example of a quarterback change of scenery, betting on himself, and cashing in. And cashing in. Kind of like what Daniel Jones is doing. Like Lloyd brought this up yesterday. By the way, that show's on demand. We had to go early yesterday in the AM. But Lloyd said, Daniel Jones could be this season's Sam Darnold. Daniel Jones is playing well. Coaching, change of scenery has something to do with it. Don't forget that. Coaching is everything, right? Death Star effect. There's no Death Star effect. There's none whatsoever. The Death Star, the microphone is on point, and there's no reverse mush. There's no reverse mush. I can say Kansas City's cooked because they're not getting back to the Super Bowl. I can proclaim certain teams right now that I believe are going to win the division. It's not a reverse mush. It's not mind games. It's not Bunker Boy de facto games. It's just me stating, me opining what I think. How about that? Is it time to stay? Stefanski isn't actually as good as a coach as they keep telling us. That's a great question because everybody I have on this show always says, oh, if the Browns got rid of Barry and Stefanski, they would get a job tomorrow. I'm starting to think that's not the case. I tend to kind of side with you on that one. This is so unrelated, but look, we know flying is annoying and such an inconvenience. Did you guys see that Spirit Airlines? Apparently, one of the flights, they were told to keep turn as they flew within the vicinity of Air Force One with the POTUS on board heading back to the UK. Did you guys hear that? Now, I don't know if it's true when they said, they were messing around with the iPad or whatever it is. I hope, God forbid, that's not the case. Wow. You would think you'd have to ground Spirit, wouldn't you? I would think so. That's just me. What do we got here? Sammy Boy, Slinging Sammy, chimes in. Q 19-1. I rest my case. I'm not going to say it's all Jalen Hurts, but the bottom line is numbers don't have to be sexy. They don't have to be gaudy. They don't have to be impressive. All this team does is win. And all these talking heads talking about A.J. Brown winning out. It's ridiculous. Listen, I say that the national guys throw that out there. They do. They throw that out there, right? A.J. Brown, we talked a little bit about this. You had to blow up a couple seasons ago against Kansas City. The very next game, he got all his touches, and he's happy. Wide receivers just want their targets. They just want their catches. They want their stats. But I also think, you look what's going on in Arizona. Marvin Harrison Jr. has been very quiet, but his comment was, we're 2-0. That's all we care about. Yeah, guys want their numbers. They want their stats. They want to hit their numbers, the incentives. But this whole, let's not rehash. They're 2-0. They're defending Super Bowl champs. What'll trip them up is, God forbid, a key injury to Hurts, to Saquon, to the offensive line. The offense has not played particularly well. I mean, that's fair. Let's be honest. Eagles offense has not looked like world beaters the first week of the season. Dallas could have won that game. Kansas City could have easily won that game too. And they've got some questions, I believe, in the secondary. The Eagles, their secondary is suspect. You can go over the top. You can beat these guys man-on-man coverage. You most certainly can. But again, you want to say, without the tush push, here we go. They play 20-20. They can still move the football. They need to clean it up a little bit. I think they need to be a little more creative on offense. I think you're going to see Jalen get rid of the football a lot more faster, and I think they're going to try to establish Saquon this weekend, first and foremost. The Texans have a problem offensively, and the Titans have a rookie quarterback. So you kind of knew those two games were tailor-made for the Rams because they have a really good defense. Now they're going to get tested. And the team that played the Eagles really well in the postseason were the Rams. I mean, they gave them their toughest game. They really did. Now, once again, number 26 set the stage for that game, right? I mean, he ran all over the place. I mean, Saquon Barkley had 206 yards. They ran for 285, 275. They averaged close to 9 yards a carry. A lot has happened since that snowy divisional game matchup in which the Eagles won 28-22. But remember, in horrible conditions, Matthew Stafford threw for 324 yards. The difference in that game, both quarterbacks were under duress. The running back made more plays for the Eagles, and when the Rams got the ball last, they couldn't punch it in. Both defenses got to the quarterback. Stafford was sacked 5 times, and Jalen Hurts was sacked 7 times. The Rams certainly have a puncher's chance in this game. Big time. Big time. Did you see Cody Kessler saying Cleveland ruined him? Never before that crap. I tend to think the cream rises to the top regardless. Making your team and teammates better is the mark of greatness. You always have to elevate your teammates. Always. Always. You always have to do that. Baker was turning the Browns around and they bailed on him after the slightest adversity. They did. He got hurt and they got rid of him. And then let's not forget, I mean, let's go back. Odell Beckham Jr.'s father went on Instagram and was pointing out videos of Baker not getting Odell the football. You know, Odell pulled the same crap when he went on ESPN with, who was it, Lil Wayne, after he got the extension and threw his Hall of Fame quarterback under the bus. So sometimes it's not the quarterback, friends. Sometimes it's, you know, these wide receivers, some of these players need to look themselves right in the eye. They need to look in the mirror. But Baker Mayfield has done an excellent job of turning his career around. And maybe Baker was always a very good quarterback. Maybe he was just in a bad spot. Maybe Daniel Jones is a good quarterback. Maybe he was just in a bad spot. I think one of the reasons, too, for Daniel Jones's turnaround, and I said this prior to the season, there's no pressure. There's none. You think the media in Indianapolis is like the media in New York? Come on. So he can go out there and he can just sling it. He can play. He can have fun. He can have fun. He can go out there and just do what he does best, right? You know, the pocket's done a really good job of keeping him upright. Daniel Jones was only sacked 2 times in 2 games. I mean, think about that. In 6 games with the Giants in 2023, he was sacked 30 times. 30 times. He was sacked 44, 30, 29, and he's only been sacked 2 times. Now, granted, it's early. They can run the football. The line is holding up. You know, he might have a game where he reverts back, but they've got another winnable game on the road against Tennessee. Now, you got a veteran quarterback going on the road against a rookie quarterback who's struggling. They should win that game. Like, if you're a Colts fan, you can ill afford to trip up. That is a winnable game. That gets you to 3-0. And now all of a sudden, you're the early talk of the NFL. Now they're laying 4.5, 5, a look-ahead line. Do I trust them? I think they'll win the game. But it's all about coaching and change of scenery. And some of these quarterbacks just need to be in the right spot. They need to be in the right system, and they have to have coaching. Kevin chimes in, Q, has your opinion changed on Dayball any? It has not. What would make you think it changed? I don't believe he's a good head coach. I don't. And, you know, it's funny. James Hasty just texted me. Had a great career in the NFL. You know, second team All-Pro, cornerback, Kansas City, played with the Jets. Because we always talk coaching. We always talk coaching. And he knows how these coaching staffs come together in the NFL. And he can pretty much tell you early on if teams are going to struggle. You know, you look at the coaching staff. A couple years ago, Gerard Mayo, everyone knew they put together a horrible staff. It wasn't going to work. You know, Mike Kafka does not deserve, he hasn't earned the right to be an offensive coordinator in the NFL, let alone an offensive coordinator calling plays with the Giants. He just hasn't. He hasn't earned that right. Bowen, the defensive coordinator, is not a defensive coordinator. I mean, at least with Martindale, the wrinkle was we're going to blitz, we're going to blitz. The other day against Dallas, late in the game, you play 10, 15 yards off the ball. That's a fireball offense. It's unacceptable. You blitz in that situation. And if they beat you, they beat you. But laying off is basically saying, go ahead, take the first swing at me, take a free shot. My hands aren't even going to be up. I can't defend myself. That's a fireball offense. Now, it's a knee jerk reaction to do it. If they give up 35 to Kansas City and they look lost, then now it's a different conversation on Monday. But coaching matters in the NFL. Coaching matters. The teams that pretty much have the best coaching staff, the guys that get it, they got the talent because they have the right evaluators. They have the right scouts. They have the right GMs. It's a trickle down effect, a domino effect. These teams that are constantly circulating head coaches, GMs, coordinators, it's a revolving door. They're bad football teams. All right, look at headlines. Thursday, Miami and the Bills. Bills are laying 11.5. Packers and the Brownies. Packers are laying 7.5 on the road. Total is 41.5. Colts, we mentioned, 4.5 favorite on the road against the Titans. Cincinnati, no Burrow. Jake from State Farm's taking over. How about this matchup? Joe Burrow versus Joe Burrow. Jake Brownie versus Carson Wentz. Minnesota at home, 2.5. Man, I'll tell you, this to me, I would grab this game right now in Cincinnati because at least you have a player that's coming in that has a little confidence and he's coming off a pretty good performance. Now, granted, he threw a couple picks, but he got his reps in. A couple touchdowns, 250 yards. Carson Wentz is rusty as can be. Steelers on the road against the Pats. Tricky game right here. Pittsburgh laying 1.5. The total is 44. The Eagles line opened at 4. It's sitting at 3.5 against the Rams. I already gave you Tampa Bay laying 6 against the Jets. Washington at home. That line right now is 3.5. Now, what's interesting about that line is we still don't know overall status of Daniels. He's not going to practice any earlier than Friday. So if he doesn't practice Friday, then I would start to think he's not going to play because you have the walkthrough on Saturday. And if he's not practicing Friday, what the hell is the point of, you got to get the backup in there to get some reps. So that's something to monitor if you were looking at that game. And Washington's backup is Eminem, Marcus Mariota. Yeah, that's alarming if you're a Commanders fan. Now, can Mariota come in and, kind of hold the ship down against the Raiders that can't score? Atlanta that's had some problems scoring. I mean, okay, granted, defensively they played well the other night. Minnesota, because McCarthy didn't make it, made it harder on himself with some of these turnovers and sacks. Can the Washington Commanders get to 4-1, 5-2? Because after the Raiders and the Falcons, they have the Chargers on the road. That's a tough game. The Bears are done already. It's a disaster. Then they've got Dallas on the road, Kansas City on the road, and then they come back Seattle and the Lions. So there's a stretch of games where you hope Jaden Daniels is under center for them. So that's something to monitor in case you guys were looking to do anything with that game. Falcons, right now, they are 5.5, 6-point favorites over Carolina. Jacksonville, a very slim 1.5-point favorite against our division rival in the Texans. Now, here's one of these spots that we talk about in the NFL. Here's one of these spots. You talk about a team that is desperate, that's 0-2, that needs a win. That needs a win. And that's the Houston Texans. They can ill afford to go to 0-3. They can't. They can ill afford to go to 0-3 because even after they play Jacksonville, yeah, you got the Titans, you get a win, then you turn around, you got the Ravens, Seahawks, and you got the 49ers and the Broncos. That's a tough schedule for the Texans. And we also thought the AFC South was kind of going to be down. So by default, I was kind of looking at the Texans to win the division. Obviously, I got to start leaning towards Indianapolis. Not yet with Jacksonville. Sorry. Broncos and the Chargers. Chargers are laying 2.5. That total is 46.5. Saints in Seattle. Seattle is an 8-point favorite at home. How about this? The Dallas Cowboys on the road are a 1.5-point underdog to an 0-2 Chicago Bears team that just gave up 52 points. Here's a really good 425 game on Sunday. Arizona and the 49ers. 49ers laying 2.5. Giants and the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs are laying 6.5. And then you got Monday Night Football. You got a really fun game. If you like high scoring, you might get it with this one. Detroit and Baltimore. Look ahead line right now, 4.5. Opened at 3.5. It moved now a point. The total is 52.5. So that is your look at week 3. Look ahead. What do we got here? Granted, he threw a couple picks. Is wild. Bengals get embarrassed and they blow the whole thing up for the trade. Bears draft Loveland over Warren and give him 1 pass attempt in 2 games. Horrible. Wasn't he supposed to be that weapon? Right? Yeah, that's funny. Granted, he threw 2 picks. I mean, it happens, right? Yeah. I mean, wasn't a high draft pick come in? Let me get another weapon. How in the world? So here's a fair question. Ben Johnson might be one and done. He looks like he's aged, like not Brad Pitt in Benjamin Button's going forward, but or backwards, but really going forward. They lose to the Vikings in a game they should have won. Should have won. Then you come on the road against a team that you're a coordinator, you rub the wrong way, and they light you up and they run it up and you give up 52. But prior to all that, you give your GM a contract extension. Explain that to me. It makes no sense. And you draft a tight end, top 10, that everyone said, whoa, this is a stretch. This is a stretch. And instead, the backup has more targets, more yards, more receptions than this kid. Like, what's the point? And DeAndre Swift, is DeAndre Swift the most underutilized back in the NFL? This guy's still young. He's 26. This guy had 1,000 yards with the Philadelphia Eagles. He had almost 1,000 last year with the Bears, and all of a sudden this year he can't play football? Like, can you run the football a little bit, Chicago? Horrible franchise. Horrible. Horrible franchise. We talk about the Browns where quarterbacks go to die. That's Chicago, man. Chicago. Need a win, but not going to get it. Go Jags. Wait, are you basically saying need a win, but not going to get it, so you don't like your Jags? Bears are an absolute joke. They're not a good franchise. They're not. All right, let me get you caught up to speed some baseball scores before we get out of here. What do we got here? Nats up on the Braves 3-0. Giants and the D-backs. Out of here with that. Giants and the D-backs are scoreless. We already told you that the Phillies clinched. They got the Dodgers tonight. It's plus 125. Cubs over the Pirates 8-4. The Reds and the Cardinals, they spit the bit late in the season. Their seasons are pretty much coming to an end. 6-2 Reds over the Cardinals. The O's wholesale change is coming. They defeated the White Sox 3-1. How about this catcher for the Mariners? I mean, that kid has just put up monster numbers. What he hit is 56 home run. Schwarber's hit 53. Kyle Schwarber has hit 53 home runs. Now, let me put it in perspective. He has 138 hits this season. 53 of them are home runs. We always talk about the long ball, do we not? A lot of home runs, man. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many? 8, 9 players? 40 or more home runs. And Soto, who we're criticizing, quietly Juan Soto has hit 40 home runs for the Mets. His career high was 41 last year for the Yankees. So pennant race is heating up. We'll talk a little baseball later on in the week. Bears are more of a joke than the Giants. Yeah, I said it. Well, I appreciate that, man. I really do. All right, we'll start wrapping it up. Back in the saddle. We believe tomorrow. Not sure if we have broadcast tomorrow, but don't, oh my God, me either. Check the notifications on the YouTube channel, please. That's why you subscribe to the channel. You'll get notified. We are dropping a new edition of Back Your Play as well. And you can catch the show Roku, NY48 WWON every Saturday and Sunday, 11 to 12. And we have some show news coming up later on in the week regarding On Cue. Good stuff from Nick Costco jumping on board, talking a little college football picks. We always know he's cost effective and he gives good knowledge. Excellent stuff from you guys. You only worked me up a little bit early on in this one on a Woosah Wednesday edition of On Cue, powered by our good friends over at Get Ready with Tea, Three Brooks Bourbon, and fresh roasted coffee. The weather is shitty out, so BYP20, that'll get you involved with the promo. And by the way, how about my guy, Robert Redford? Roy Hobbs, Robert Redford, The Natural, passing away. I believe The Natural is the greatest sports movie of all time. But let me just add, you guys know I'm a movie buff. I've also said this probably for 30 plus years. I think the 70s was one of the best eras, decades, genres, if you will, for music, for movies. Well, music too, but for movies. You had so many classic movies. Like if you think about it, you had like so many. If you're going through the top, 10, 11, I mean, obviously you have The Godfather, which I love. I still believe it's the greatest movie of all time. You had The Godfather 2. You had One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You had The Conversation with Gene Hackman. You had Chinatown, which was a remarkable. It was an. If you get a chance, watch a movie Chinatown with Jack Nicholson. Right, just a fascinating movie. Mean Streets, Taxi Driver. You had, and then you had a lot of great Robert Redford movies. 3 Days of the Condor is one of my all-time favorites. The Sting is arguably one of the greatest con movies ever. And yes, you had Apocalypse Now and The Exorcist in the 70s. You had Jaws, one of my other all-time favorites. So, Redford made so many great movies in the 70s. All the President's Men, right? You had what year was Jeremiah Johnson? I think it was 71, 72. That's the gift that everyone likes, or the meme. But that was a fantastic movie. 3 Days of the Condors, I mentioned. Brubaker was 1980. But he was such a phenomenal actor, director, producer. He just, every movie, right? And again, one of my other all-time favorites, which was 1969, was Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Like him, Paul Newman, unbelievable. Catherine Ross, Stroman Martin, fantastic. Sam Elliott, by the way, a young Sam Elliott was in that movie. It just stinks because, as you get older, right, you lose Gene Hackman. You lose Robert Redford. We know it's inevitable what's coming up next with some of these older actors that we grew up, the Pacinos, the Neros, the Harrison Fords, the Clint Eastwoods, because everyone gets old. It sucks. But Robert Redford, to me, was a generational actor. He had that charm, handsome guy, good looking guy, the boyish good looks early on in his career. Every movie, like there are some actors where you flip on their movie and it can be in the beginning, the middle, and the end, and you're just going to watch it. He was, to me, I think that's one of the best compliments you can pay someone. And the other reason that I felt or feel that his legacy, he was very into the movies, with the political feel or the activist feel, the social injustices, right? With some of the movies, he was an environmentalist, right? Director, as I mentioned, along with the acting, but he picked and chose. He talked about his legacy, where you just don't make a movie to make a movie. You don't just make a movie to get a check, to cash a check. Like it had to feel right. The project had to feel right. And to me, I think it kind of just shows, it speaks on what he was as an artist, as an actor. And I still maintain, we know from The Natural, growing up as a kid, an all-time great sports movie, but check out Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid. Watch The Sting. Watch 3 Days of the Condor. Watch Brubaker when he took over. He was a warden in a corrupt prison. Jeremiah Johnson. I mean, he made fantastic, fantastic movies. And like I said, moves to Utah in 61, right? He wanted to kind of preserve that natural landscape of the state, the American West. He had that passion for art as a filmmaker. He created that Sundance Institute, which was a nonprofit to kind of help independent film and theater. That's, again, what do? We go to the Sundance Film Festival, right? But just phenomenal, phenomenal. I was sad when Gene Hackman passed away. I was sad the other day when I learned that Robert Redford passed away, because he was just a phenomenal actor. And I'm going to be very sad when the Robert De Niro's, the Al Pacinos, the Clint Eastwoods, Jack Nicholson, Harrison Fords, because those are all the guys that we grew up with, right? Watching these great, great movies. And obviously, you go and, The Barefoot in the Park was the movie that kind of started his career. And then he becomes that heartthrob in The Way We Were with Barbara Streisand. As they say, the rest is history. All the President's Men. Yeah, Kevin chimes in. That's a really good, that was a great movie. But to me, The Natural, fantastic. But he will certainly be missed. So, all right, we're going to start wrapping up. Excellent job from you guys, as always, with the comments. I always appreciate it. Check the notifications on the YouTube channel for tomorrow's show. Football Friday will be very, very busy. We still want to put a little bow on Crawford and Canelo. We got some numbers we'll share with you later on the week. John Bueller. We'll see if we can get Brandon to pop back on, Lloyd on a Football Friday. And, of course, you guys out there, we'll do our best, our pack of picks, our Q's picks, as well, powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. All right, you guys have a wonderful Sports Wednesday. As I mentioned, check the notifications for tomorrow because, again, as I mentioned, we might be doing some basketball games. So check the notifications, but definitely back in the saddle on a Friday edition of On Cue. As always, I'm Rich Quinones. Be safe, be sound. We'll talk to you again. As always, hasta luego, my dear.